Imagine getting offended at a movie critic for doing his job, and he didn't even take a side on this movie's message. God, how pathetic do you have to be to get mad at someone for just talking about a movie?
White.
Centering white silence.
Is there a black person around here?
Well, there's a black person right here. Does he not exist?
They gon' say I'm racist, but they call everybody racist.
Jeremy Jahns, Adam Does Movies, and all you white movie critics, step aside, okay? Let the minority talk. Yes, that's right, me, a minority, will comment on this movie and see if it is an entertaining movie at least. Because my opinion is the only opinion that matters, and all you white motherfuckers, you don't matter. I'm just kidding, I couldn't give two fucks what color you are. As long as you're cool with me, I'm cool with you. Why does it have to be any more complex than that? I love you, Jeremy Jahns and Adam Does Movies. You guys are some of my biggest inspirations for this channel. Alright, let's get to it. Let's just make this very clear that I don't really have much of a stance on the Daily Wire, conservative, leftist, whatever the fuck. I don't care, and I don't really understand it enough to really pick a side. I'm just an Asian guy who likes to talk about movies, and this is a movie that was released in theaters, so I went to go watch it and see for myself what the fuss was about. And I gotta say, I had a pretty good time watching this movie. And so did my audience, I dare say. No matter what your beliefs are, you should always be open to questions. People questioning your beliefs if they're right or wrong. And this film, obviously inspired by Borat, explores the world of anti-racist people and groups. And the only way for Matt Walsh to do that is by transforming himself into a certified DEI. It says here that DEI stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Should I know that? Should an Asian guy know that? I don't know, because I can't remember the last time people actually gave a fuck about my people. I don't have a big enough brain to really understand everything that was going on within this film, but I can safely say that it definitely was funny. Undercover Matt Walsh going around meeting, greeting, and interviewing all these people who claim to be anti-racist. I mean, come on. Whether you agree or disagree with the things people say within this film, you have to admit that some of it can be kind of out there. This film, of course, is shot as a documentary, so when Matt Walsh is going around interviewing these people and recording these groups that are having these meetings, it makes me wonder just how did he manage to get these people to sign off and agree to his team to record them. Honestly, the process of how he got this film made seems a lot more fascinating and funny to me than the actual movie itself, but the movie itself is also pretty funny on its own. The first act starts off pretty slow. It's more of a setup to what Matt Walsh wants to do with this documentary. He hasn't transformed yet, but by the second to third act, when he is transformed into this DEI expert, oh my goodness, I mean, this movie was a blast. The things that he was able to do, the things that he got other people to say and do, I mean, my goodness, it had the entire theater laughing their ass off, mine included. It's a funny movie that asks a lot of questions. It wants you to think about people who claim to be anti-racist, groups or organizations that are also striving for diversity and inclusivity. Matt Walsh not only interviews people who claim to be experts or professionals, but also just regular people, whether they be on the street or at a bar or maybe even a biker gang. All of that while LARPing as a DEI expert. And like I said, it's pretty funny, it's pretty entertaining. But I think this documentary lacks a lot of nuance. This film obviously leans a lot to one side of the story and doesn't really give us much depth about what's going on the other side. There are moments where I felt that Matt Walsh could have just been more of a passive observer to learn and try to understand these groups of people, but instead he kind of was an asshole. And while I understand the message that he's trying to get across this documentary, I felt that it would have been all the more powerful if he just gave us two sides of the coin. Not Matt's message, but rather the question this film wants us to ask ourselves and ask the people around us. What made Borat stand so well is the fact that his character didn't really have much of a stance other than to just adapt to American culture and show us just how ridiculous we can be. Now, of course, Borat isn't as simple as I'm making it seem to be, but that's why we love that film so much. It's a mockumentary of Americans, but it also isn't afraid to make fun of itself. Here in Am I Racist, it doesn't really ever poke fun at itself. There's a very clear stance that Matt Walsh is taking here, and unfortunately, without the nuance, it sort of ruins this documentary. And by the end of this film, Matt doesn't leave us with the questions, he literally just spells out the message to us. And with all that being said, it's still a pretty funny movie. I'm pretty sure everyone's favorite scene from this movie is when Matt Walsh managed to convince a person to give someone money. That was That shit was fucking wild. Again, I don't really have much of a political stance on this film or these groups of people whatsoever. I'm just making an opinion, a review, a critique of this film, this documentary. I had fun with it. I'm a Hmong guy who is an indigenous group of people from East and Southeast Asia. Signing off.